Hello Internet and welcome back to the channel. Today it's going to be something different. We're going to be taking a look back at my memories of the wonderful pay-per-view known as SummerSlam. People who do know me, and the more you pay attention to the channel, the more you'll get to know. Check out the first Confessions of a Retro Gamer. My first pay-per-view was WrestleMania 6, which was Hulk Hogan vs. The Ultimate Warrior, and it's still in my top 2 pay-per-views of all time. But I think the next pay-per-view that I watched after that was Royal Rumble 1991, and then WrestleMania 7, and then the first SummerSlam I watched was 1991. Keep in touch with this show, because we're going to go right from 1988 when the first one started, all the way up to 2013. If you want my thoughts and review and opinions of 2014, it's on the channel already, just go check it out. Bearing in mind this is my personal memories, what I've learnt over the years, the history regarding the history of SummerSlam. It's not for verbatim. Some facts you may know, some facts you may not. Obviously I won't bother mentioning the most obvious ones, like, you know, Steve Austin hurting his neck with Owen Hart in '97. I'll make reference to it, but I won't dwell on it. But as anyone knows, you know, I have a very storied history when it comes to wrestling. I've been a fan on and off since 1990 with WrestleMania 6. I think SummerSlam is the one pay-per-view that I've always constantly kept coming back to for some reason. I've always rated it quite highly on the Big Four. So here's my take on the history and memories of the SummerSlam pay-per-view. Now, bearing in mind, I can't remember all of the feuds and what was the build-up to the feuds, so feel free to comment and let us know on Twitter or on the Facebook page or even on the YouTube that you're seeing this on, and you know, correct me if I do go wrong, because, you know, mistakes do happen. But again, this is all from memory. Some parts I've picked up as I've gone back and looked up over the years, but I hope you enjoy it. It might take a while, but I'm sure we'll get there in the end. So SummerSlam 1988, it took place in August, as most of the SummerSlams do, and I believe it emanated from Madison Square Garden, which I think did most of the pay-per-views, their very first ones. I'm not too sure about King of the Ring and Survivor Series, but I know WrestleMania did, and I'm sure I'll figure out Royal Rumbles when we come to do that one. Now, some of the matches on this were, we had the tag team championship match between Demolition and the Hart Foundation, which was absolutely fantastic. I don't think it comes as recommended as the Hart Foundation and Demolition match of 1990, which again is a fantastic example of tag team wrestling, a 2 out of 3 falls match, but we'll get to that in a bit. I believe that Demolition went over on that one because they were the heels, I believe. I know the Hart Foundation had just recently turned face by getting rid of Jimmy Hart. Quick fun fact that this is Demolition's start to holding the belt for almost a year, I believe it was. They had a phenomenal run as tag team champions from the first time. We also had Big Boss Man while he was still a heel against Koko Beware. Not much to say about that. It's Koko Beware, you know. He's got a bird. Jake the Snake Robertson beat Hercules, I believe. Dino Bravo and Don Morocco. I don't really remember much about that one, but a fun fact about our next match was the Powers of Pain. That was the Barbarian and the Warlord. Now, fun fact about that is Demolition were created because WWF couldn't get the Road Warriors, which more commonly known, if you've only ever watched WWF and WWE, they were called the Legion of Doom. Now, the reason why the Powers of Pain were on this pay-per-view is because Vince tried to get hold of the Road Warriors again, and they declined, so he created another tag team by having them brought in. I believe they took on the Bolsheviks, they were the American, you know, tag team Russian team where they just got battered all the time because, I don't know, it was a bit stupid. Ravishing Rick Rude was starting to break off and everything. He beat Junkyard Dog, I believe it was. and this was one of the last times we saw the British Bulldogs, the Davey Boy Smith and the Dynamite Kid, on pay-per-view. I believe they were gone at Survivor Series 1988. They took on the Rougeau brothers, Jacques and Raymond. Now, Raymond stuck around and became a color commentator or interviewer, I believe, as his career went on, but Jacques came back as the Mountie, and then in the tag team, the Quebecers, a bit later on. Who else do we have? We also had the wonderful Ultimate Warrior smash the Honky Tonk Man in about 30 seconds to win the Intercontinental Championship. Now, everyone knows Honky Tonk Man had held the championship for forever, and originally this was supposed to be Brutus the Barber Beefcake. Now, I watched a video, I believe it was Saturday night's main event. There was a VHS event, I think it was the best of completion tape or compilation, and it showed a clip on there because it put the match, Brutus the Barber Beefcake and Ron Bass, and it showed the angle where Ron Bass cut open Brutus's head with his spurs, I believe it was, and that's the reason why old Brood Eye was taken off of the pay-per-view, and Honky Tonk Man, being the ever wonderful champion that he was, just challenged anybody. It did an open challenge, just said, well, I'm here, I don't want to walk out without defending my championship. The Warriors music hit, out he ran, smashed Honky Tonk, and then we had a new IC belt holder, which was fantastic. Now, I can imagine if I was a kid, I would have been going through the roof with such amazement because the Warrior was so colourful and different from Hulk Hogan's red and yellow and Macho Man's colours. You know, he was different and he stood out, and that's why I'm such a fan of the Warrior. Honky Tonk Man stuck around a little while longer. He carried on his feud for a little while with Warrior, but then went off and did, I believe that it was a tag team called Riverman Blues with Greg the Hammer Valentine, I believe it was. I was never the biggest Honky Tonk Man fan, I'll say. I respect his ability in the ring and I respect him as a human being. And fair play that he's still out there doing it now, you know. Keep on, my friend, you know. Fair shout to you. That brings us to the main event, the Mega Powers. Hulk Hogan and Macho Man Randy Savage with Miss Elizabeth in their corner against the Mega Bucks. $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase and Andre the Giant with Bobby Heenan and Virgil in their corner. Fun fact about this one is Jesse the Body Ventura was actually the guest referee of this one, and there are vignettes with Ted DiBiase, trying to, I believe it was, bribe Jesse the Body Ventura to throw the match in their favour. I know Jesse didn't really like Hulk Hogan on screen, and apparently behind the scenes as well, but don't know, wasn't there, don't know the full story, so I won't comment on it. It's an entertaining match, you know, for considering Macho Man and Ted DiBiase are fantastic workers. Andre was, I believe it was round about now, his health started to get pretty bad, so he wasn't doing as much as he was back in the day. Hogan being shoehorned into the main event. Now, this is a one thing I've got a problem with looking back at previous things. I never got to know Hulk Hogan when I was a fan of wrestling as a kid. I just thought, oh, he's Hulk Hogan. And if you look at it, really, Macho Man defends the championship once on a pay-per-view, and that's WrestleMania 5, and then lost it. He never defended it at SummerSlam 1988. I'll get back to that in a second. He never defended it at Survivor Series because it was still the teams of 5 strive to survive. And at the Royal Rumble, the champions used to be entered into the Royal Rumble, so he didn't defend it there either. I think he defended it on house shows, on Challenge, and on Saturday night's main event, but they're not the big 4 of the time, so in a way that's pretty poor for Randy Savage to be the champion for the whole year, but to never be on one of the pay-per-views. Defending it was a bit poor, and a bit poor booking. But then if Hulk Hogan was still being booked as the superstar, then whatever. I personally would have preferred to have seen a Randy Savage match at the end here against somebody up and coming and whatever. I don't have anything against the Hogan Savage tag team. You know, if it sold and it made him money, fair shout to him. You know, it's okay. The Mega Powers won, obviously, because Hogan's in the finish, but the finish is more remembered for this really innocent-looking Miss Elizabeth ripping off half her dress and exposing her legs and her bum because she took off the skirt of her pretty horrendous red and yellow dress, and it distracted Jesse Ventura, Andre the Giant, and Ted DiBiase and everybody there, and then Hogan and Savage double teamed them from behind and won. So it's a typical Hogan affair, but a great little fact here is if you go back and watch it, you'll see that Hogan grabs Elizabeth and is like, yeah, we won, and Savage gives him a little look, and it's right there, the first pay-per-view that they're together, that they've already started to show the dissension between Hogan and Savage. It's already there. And going back and looking at all these matches now, you see some hold up and some don't, but the angles do, and it just shows that booking way ahead is much more better than what we do nowadays. Now for an interesting fact about SummerSlam 1988. I don't know if anybody really knows about this, but Ric Flair was approached to join the WWF at the time. Now, Vince had offered him a phenomenal amount of money, apparently, and Flair turned it down due to being loyal to Jim Crockett Promotions, and then as it was to become WCW. So the original plan was to have Flair come in and wrestle Randy Savage for the championship. I shit you not, it's on Wikipedia, it's on another website I had a look at a couple of days ago. If I can find the site again, I'll put it back up along with the Wikipedia article. But who'd have thought it? In 1988, they were looking to put Flair and Savage together in the ring. Would it have held up as much as their WrestleMania 8 encounter? I don't know. But that's an amazing piece of history to find out, and I just wonder what the card would have been like instead of having that as the pay-per-view main event, you know? I mean, that's wonderful, but, you know, looking back at it and watching it when I did, it holds no nostalgia for me because I was obviously in my 20s when I watched this, so it's not a bad pay-per-view, but there's better in terms of SummerSlams, but for the first one it's not too bad, and the ending's pretty funny too. Now, moving swiftly forward, is another one that I didn't watch growing up. I watched it pretty much more when I was in my 20s. SummerSlam 1989. Hot off the heels of WrestleMania 5 come all the rematches that some people wanted to see and some didn't. Let's get a lot of them out of the way real quick. The tag team Strike Force, I believe it was Rick Martel and Tito Santana split, I believe it was at WrestleMania 5. So, Rick Martel had gone heel and he joined forces with the Fabulous Rougeaus. And they all took on Tito Santana and the Rockers. Now, this isn't a bad match. It's nearly 15 minutes long. Shawn back then was a phenomenal athlete. He could do loads of gifted stuff. He's a fantastic little guy, so it's not bad. It's one of the better matches on the pay-per-view. You also had Demolition teaming up with Jim Duggan. They were faces for a little bit. And they took on this wonderful array of bad guys. Check this out. We had the Andre the Giant, the Big Boss Man when he was at his biggest, I believe, and Akeem when they were renowned as the Twin Towers. That's a lot of beef, as $1 Million Man would say, in the ring. Demolition and Jim Duggan win that match, but it's worth going back and looking for it. It's not the best match on the planet, but it's worth looking at for what we've seen. Ted DiBiase beat Jimmy Snuka, Mr. Perfect and the Red Rooster. You know, there was a lot of filler on this card. It was just, it's like a lot of WWF pay-per-views now. There's a lot of filler on them. You know, there's not really many matches you wanted to see. One match that everyone did want to see, and it's a fantastic match. It's very scientific, it's very technical. It's a great little match going back and watching it. The Brainbusters, Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard. They'd recently jumped over from the NWA, Jim Crockett, whatever it was, and signed with WWF. And they'd won, I believe, the Tag Team Championship from Demolition, I think it was. But they were fighting the Hart Foundation at this pay-per-view, but the championship wasn't up for grabs due to a stipulation in the contract that had been signed before they won the belts or something. So that isn't a tag team championship match, but it's still a fantastic match. You've got two of the greatest guys from the NWA wrestling with one of the greatest tag teams in WWE history as well. Go back and look at it. It's some great stuff. They wouldn't stick around for long. I believe they were gone just after Survivor Series 1989. Arn and Shawn Michaels in the, I think it's the Ultimate Warriors Survivor Series match at that pay-per-view. They tore the house down. Arn Anderson's basically a one-man tour de force because Andre's gone, and it's him and Bobby Heenan left. So, him and Shawn, it's a great match. And they also had a fantastic match on Saturday night's main event. It's again on the video, VHS. I think it's the best of. I'll put a picture up when I find it. Hercules and Greg Valentine was also on the match, but then we had another tag team match to finish SummerSlam. Now, out of the first 4, there was 3 tag team matches. One was what's it called? A handicap match, which we'll get to in a bit. Hulk Hogan and Brutus the Barber Beefcake. Now, obviously Hogan had won the championship at WrestleMania 5, and they still had some gas in the tank, I suppose it was, for him and Macho Man. Hogan had just finished doing the film No Holds Barred, and they'd brought the villain in, Zeus. Yeah, I laughed as well looking back at this, but again, he made his debut, I think it was again at Saturday night's main event. Jeez, this non-pay-per-view thing gets a lot of mileage in this. But it was in the match with Hogan versus Big Boss Man, I believe it was, and that was a cage match. Now again, it's on the VHS, and hopefully it'll be on the DVD. If it is, I'll provide a link in the description below. But Zeus came out, and it was the story was Zeus was pissed off or upset that Hogan got all the credit for the film, so he came in to destroy him. Now Zeus stuck around, I think it was all the way till Survivor Series, and he didn't sell anything. It was, even looking back as a kid when I watched No Holds Barred, this was so terrible. It was just a horrible gimmick. It was worse than John Cena, and that's saying something. The match itself isn't too bad, you know. Randy Savage could probably work with a broom, you know, or a mop handle, and it'd be great. Hogan's his normal self. But a fun fact for this one is the fact that this is technically the Megamaniacs' very first tag team encounter. For those who don't know what the Megamaniacs is, and I've been talking to myself, they teamed up together again at WrestleMania 9, if everyone remembers, when Brutus the Barber Beefcake returned after having major reconstructive surgery to his face, after having an parasailing or whatever it was accident, and they were christened the Megamaniacs. So technically this is the very first Megamaniacs tag team pay-per-view, and they went to carry on for a little while, and they did, I think it was the main event or Rage in a Cage or whatever it was, where that was the end of the feud. And that was put on, I think it was a pay-per-view with as a double feature with No Holds Barred in America. Also on SummerSlam 1989 is the rematch from WrestleMania 5, Ultimate Warrior versus Ravishing Rick Rude. Now everybody knows what happened at WrestleMania 5. Warrior went for, I think it was a suplex, he was tripped up, and Bobby Heenan held his feet, so he couldn't kick out when Rick had reversed it. So they went in, and this was the conclusion for a while to their feud, because the Warrior and Rude have been feuding all the way since Royal Rumble with the pose down. Then the IC belt went up for grabs at Mania 5 and then was won back from Rick Rude to the Warrior at SummerSlam. It's a really good match. Warrior and Rick Rude had some great chemistry, so hunt it down. It's a great match on the pay-per-view. Absolutely. Anyway, SummerSlam 1990, we had the formation of Power and Glory. I think that was Hercules and Paul Roma. They battered the Rockers. Shawn Michaels was injured, so he couldn't wrestle, but he was there anyway. And Marty Jannetty proved that he could be a really good wrestler, and it was pretty fun to watch. And Marty held the match together for however long it was, but eventually lost out to this superplex and big splash off the top rope, which was a phenomenal tag team finishing move. You know, you had the heart attack or the demolition elbow, whatever it is. Very rare did you see something different like that, and wow, the Power and Glory finishing move, what a finisher. The Warlord and Tito Santana went at it for a little bit. I think Tito lost that one as well, so that's the second Power of Pain he lost to. First being the Bavarian at WrestleMania 6. Jake Roberts beat Bad News Brown, I think it was. The Big Boss Man did double duty that night, didn't he? So I think he refereed that match, and that was by DQ. Bad News Brown got into a lot of disqualifications, and I think this was his last pay-per-view as well. I don't think he was around for the Survivor Series, and if he is, or if he was, sorry, I'll put it corrected in the link below, so no need to hate me. Nikolai Volkov had recently turned good guy and joined with Jim Duggan. I don't know why, it's just another pointless thing, and then they went up against the Orient Express, which was just another whatever. A big story going into this SummerSlam was Sapphire was being wooed by, I believe it was the $1 Million Man, and she was supposed to fight Sensational Sherry, and she no-showed, and then Dusty Rhodes and Randy Savage were supposed to finish their feud, and this is when Sapphire came out with $1 Million Man. I think it was either before the Dusty Rhodes match or during it or whatever. So that was the end of one feud, and Dusty went off to go after $1 Million Man. And I believe this was also Sapphire's last appearance for the WWE, but I could be mistaken. We also had a newcomer with the Texas Tornado, Kerry Von Erich, coming in to take on Mr. Perfect for the Intercontinental Championship. Now, this was portrayed as Texas Tornado's a rookie. He's never, he's just come in, no one knows who he is, and it was stupid. As a kid looking back at it, I didn't know who Texas Tornado was. I've seen him on the TV, but the book my father gave me when I was a kid, Champions of Wrestling, he was in there from WCCW, AWA, and all this other stuff that he'd been a part of. So I knew who he was, and it was a bit silly that this other guy, Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig, who's also been a heavyweight champion in another organization. Yeah, okay. No one knows what anything is outside the WWF. Okay. Still, it's not a bad match. It's not really a squash match, but it's not too long either. It's about 6 or 7 minutes, 5, 6, 7 minutes, I don't know, but Mr. Perfect's too busy gallivanting, he's gloating, he's slapping Kerry Von Erich, and then I can remember he got him in the corner or something, and he slaps the Texas Tornado, and he just comes out, does like he throws him into the post, and Perfect smashes his head, and he puts the claw on him and gives him a punch, and then he wins the IC belt on his first pay-per-view. So, as Jim Cornette would say, wouldn't you know who won the pony on that one? But not a bad title match. Tornado kept it, I think it was till near the end of the year. He had it at Survivor Series, and then lost it back. I think it was also to Mr. Perfect, but it wasn't a bad match. I know Tornado looked really impressive. It wouldn't have surprised me if they stuck him and Ultimate Warrior together, because they looked really good in a tag team together at Survivor Series, but I guess we'll never know. This was also the first SummerSlam to be hit with a double main event, the first of many down the years. Hulk Hogan had recently returned to action. This was his first, I think it was the first match back on television / pay-per-view. He'd been put out of action by the Earthquake. I can remember him being on the Brother Love show and everything, and Earthquake jumped him, quite funny that, and then kept doing his finishing move onto Hogan's chest, and there was a mass letter appeal. Everyone was sending letters in, kids were crying on the video. I can remember watching it and being really I wouldn't say like upset to the point where I was crying, but I was really shocked that something like that had happened, because this man had seemed so so larger than life and was being carried out on a stretcher. It was something different. I was young enough to know the difference between a soap opera being fake, but for some reason this caught me because it was still being presented as a sport. So every time you see someone in a sport being carried away, it was kind of like that. But he came back, and I think Big Boss Man was in his corner as well, and he went up against Earthquake with Dino Bravo and Jimmy Hart, but he didn't win in the conventional way. He won by count out, and I can't remember, was it Big Boss Man or Hulk Hogan? One was in a bear hug, and the other one smashed Earthquake a couple of times with the chair, and he had the cuts on the side of his arm or his back when he was interviewed a bit later. Yeah, not the greatest match. It went on longer than Warriors. We'll get to that in a second, but you know, obviously Hogan was still the name, so he was being pushed as well. Not bad. They would carry on feuding. I think it was all the way up to Royal Rumble, when I think it was him and Hogan and Earthquake were the last two in there, but that's for another day. But yeah, it's not a bad match. Now, obviously, we're going to come to the match of the card here. In my opinion, it was the tag team match for the tag team championships. The Hart Foundation, Bret and Jim versus Demolition, Smash and Crush, and Axe. Now, for some reason, some reports have varied, but Axe had some medical condition. One was to do with being allergic to shellfish. Another was to do with his heart. I don't know which is the true one, so I can't comment. But Axe was slowly being phased out of Demolition and couldn't do much in the ring, so they got Crush to come in to replace him. The whole purpose of the story was Hart Foundation had challenged the winner of the Tag Team Championship match at WrestleMania 6 to a match for the titles. Now, there was loads of stuff going in and out, and it led to this. Now, fun fact for this one, this was the Legion of Doom, you know, the Road Warriors, making their appearance at SummerSlam for the first time and helping with the match. It was a 2 out of 3 falls match. I think it was Demolition won the first, Hart Foundation won the second via DQ, and then they finally won the third one when the LOD came out to stop Demolition cheating. A great tag team match, one of my favourite matches of all time. It's just such a shame that, you know, looking back and seeing them then and seeing how some of them are affected now, it's such a shame. But it's definitely in my top 20 matches of all time when I'm looking at stuff from when I was a kid. Bret and Jim would hold the belts. I think it was all the way up until WrestleMania 7, where they'd lose it to the Nasty Boys. Now, interesting contrast, Texas Tornado is his first appearance on SummerSlam and on a pay-per-view, and he won the IC belt straight away. LOD's first appearance, and they don't win the Tag Team Championships. They'd have to wait a whole year, till 1991. Quite funny when you look back at that, isn't it? And last but no means least, my favourite wrestler from when I was a kid, the Ultimate Warrior, makes another appearance, wrestling Rick Rude once again. Now, 1989, it was the blow-off match to their Intercontinental Championship feud, but for some reason it was picked back up again in 1990, and Rick Rude and Warrior decided to settle it inside the steel cage. Both bled a little bit. It's one of Warrior's more funky little matches. He shows off a bit of personality, you know, towards the end when he wins and so forth, but a good little match, you know. Like I keep saying, the Warrior matches are never going to win any Oscars for being like a Godfather movie, you know, but for entertainment, you know, the guy was larger than life, so don't hate, appreciate, you know what I mean? But that was SummerSlam 1990, you know, one of the better ones. We're getting better as we're moving on. Then we come to the very first SummerSlam that I watched, and it was truly because 2 reasons. Well, probably more, as I come to remember them. One, I wanted to see the Mountie and the Big Boss Man in the jailhouse match. Now, that was pure comedy. What happened after? The match is pretty okay, but what happens after, with the Mountie being dragged, after he's saying he's never going in, Boss Man better get used to hard time and everything. And the comment that made me laugh the most is, looking back, how they got away with doing this is when the police officer wants to take his fingerprints and says, "Ah, give me the finger. You want the finger? Here's the finger!" And gives him the bird. And as a kid, I can remember watching this thinking, what the hell is he doing? I can remember watching this live on Sky Movies back in the day. This was before Sky Movies put everything onto Sky Sports and now on the box office, but I digress. On a sad note, this was the very last pay-per-view that Andre the Giant appeared on. He didn't wrestle, he came out, I believe it was with the Bushwhackers, when they took on Earthquake and Typhoon, the Natural Disasters. Now, I vaguely remember something about this feud. Was Earthquake was looking for a tag team partner, and him and Jimmy Hart had approached Andre the Giant, I believe it was, and Andre didn't want nothing to do with him. Was attacked, and they did something to his knees, I think it was. One of his knees, Earthquake hit his knees with the megaphone, so Andre came out on crutches, And although I'd only watched wrestling for like 18 months, to see Andre just go from what he was like at WrestleMania 6 to see this, I didn't understand when I was a kid, but looking back now, I feel so bad for the guy, because obviously he was suffering. You know, he suffered from the disease that giant men and women get. So it's quite bittersweet to go back and look at this and see Andre in that way. But moving on, the pay-per-view did start with the British Bulldog, Ricky Steamboat, and Texas Tornado against Power and Glory with the Warlord. Not a bad six-man match, you know. It's just we need to put these guys on the card sort of match. Yeah, it's pretty decent. I think Ricky Steamboat, this was his dragon persona, I think it was, and I think he got it by doing the body splash off the top. So it wasn't a bad match. What else do we have? Erwin R. Shyster and Greg Valentine. I can't even remember that, so proves how memorable that was for me. The Legion of Doom and the Nasty Boys. Now, I can remember there being a big thing about this. The Nasty Boys had done something in there when they won the tag team title from the Hart Foundation at WrestleMania 7. They used a megaphone or something. So LOD came out and said, well, we're from Chicago or wherever it is they're from, and we're bad and we're hard, so, you know, if you're going to do this, and Nasty Boys may have attacked them and said, well, if we're going to do this, then it's going to be no holds barred or something. There was like no DQs and no countouts, I think it was, or whatever the thing was. It was an entertaining match. It was good fun. Legion of Doom won, but you know, they'd been there a whole year, so I would like to know if there was plans to put LOD and the Hart Foundation at WrestleMania 7. I think that would have been an entertaining match. You know, we wouldn't get the Hart Foundation to fight Legion of Doom, I don't think, until '97, and even then it wasn't really the Hart Foundation, it was just the stable of the Hart Foundation with Legion of Doom and the other stable, Canadian Stampede. But I'm digressing, so I'm going to move on. Now, this pay-per-view was also the match made in hell and the match made in heaven, where Macho Man married Miss Elizabeth. I can't really remember much about that. I don't recall ever watching that. You know, I think I just turned it off, and I don't think I've ever watched it to this day. So I know what happens after with Undertaker and Jake Roberts crashing the party with the Python or the Cobra or whatever it was. But yeah, whatever. Bret the Hitman Hart and Mr. Perfect, easily in my top 5 favourite matches of all time. Perfect was a legend. I don't care what anybody says. The man went in with a serious back injury and won. Lost, you know, but he won the hearts of everybody by how he was wrestling. A fantastic match. It went on. It didn't feel like it was going on for ages. It felt, in fact, looking back at it, it didn't last long enough. You know, such a great chemistry between these two. And their rematch, I think it was King of the Ring '93 as well, is tons of fun as well. But Bret won the IC belt, and I remember him going up and hugging his mum and dad. So it was a really nice, warm, fuzzy feeling with that match. And as a kid, it was great. You know, I never really liked Mr. Perfect as a kid. It was only when I was going into my teenage years that I really got behind Mr. Perfect and respected his ability in the ring, rather than just thinking, oh, this guy's a douche because of whatever. Which is how I feel about a lot of these wrestlers now. And then we come to our main event, yet another tag match in yet another SummerSlam. The newly crowned WWF champion Hulk Hogan, who won the belt from Sergeant Slaughter at WrestleMania 7, teamed up with the Ultimate Warrior. Now, I think this was the second time they teamed up. I think they teamed up once before. I think it was just before WrestleMania 6 when they took on Perfect and the Genius. Again, put quotes to, you know, put a comment in this comment section. Sergeant Slaughter, Colonel Mustafa, and General Adnan, weren't they called like the Triad of Terror or the Trinity of Terror, something like that? It was, as a kid, I loved this match for some reason. It was my favourite guy of all time, the Ultimate Warrior. But it's a pretty poor match. Looking back at it, I know Sid Justice was introduced as the guest referee, and then he stuck around, and I just immediately took a dislike to the guy. He just looked really stupid. All hell breaks loose, and then the Warrior chases 2 of them away. I can't remember who Hogan pinned, but Hogan scored the pin, and that was it. And then he got Sid Justice to come back out and do pose downs with him then for the rest of the night. The fact on this one is everyone knows the story here. Vince fired or whatever Ultimate Warrior for money and everything. You know, it's one of those. I don't have all the facts. I wasn't there, so I can't comment. So, and also, it's what's it now? 2014. It's 23 years ago. Ultimate Warrior has since passed away. There's no point in dredging up any ill feeling, but that was 1991, and I really, really did love this pay-per-view. Like I said, it was the fourth pay-per-view I watched. I think 91 was the very first year I watched all the big four when they were on, so quite happy about that, really, looking back at it. I think I did it as well for 1992 as well. Speaking of 1992, the Legion of Doom had lost the championship belts because Hawk had failed a drug test or something. Now they lost it, and I don't think the match has ever been shown. But they were supposed to have their rematch against Money Inc., the recently formed $1 Million Man, and I think it was called IRS. But Money Inc. had lost the belts to the Natural Disasters very recently as well, so their rematch was not a tag match, but it's not a bad match. I remember them coming out on Harley Davidson's, I believe. Now, this is the very first SummerSlam that was in England, and I think it's going to be the last pay-per-view we get over here, like, of the major ones, but it's fantastic. You know, I don't think there's any a bad match on the card. There's a couple of comedy moments with Shawn Michaels and Rick Martel where they can't hit each other in the face. It's a bit stupid. And was it Nails choking the hell out of Virgil all the way through? You know, we got Crush and Repo Man. I don't recall seeing that match on the live broadcast here. I can remember watching this live in the living room actually when my dad was converting the roof, our attic, sorry, into bedrooms. So I was really, really psyched for this match. I really couldn't wait to watch it, and there was a couple of reasons, you know. Mainly the double main event. We had a double main event for this one. Well, I say double main event very loosely because it was you'd call it a double main event originally, but the Americans had one main event and England had the other main event, so more on that in a second. The Undertaker was still in his dead man, walking slow, not doing anything, and he was wrestling Kamala, I think his name was, and it shows how much I can remember of this. I can't really remember the feud, to be honest. I don't know if he wrestled. I think it was a casket match at Survivor Series. So is this the one where Kamala kept jumping off the rope and doing the big splash onto him, and then Paul Bearer slapped the ring, and Taker just sat up after he'd taken like 10 or 11 of these big splashes that would kill a normal wrestler? But yeah, it wasn't bad. Poor old Kamala. What's happened to him now? The Tag Team Championships was defended. The Natural Disasters beat the Beverly Brothers. Again, I can't really remember much about that. I don't really remember much about the Beverly Brothers. I never really paid attention to them because I don't really like them. But then comes to the first of the main events. What America classed as their main event was Ultimate Warrior and Randy Savage. Now, going into this, Savage had won the championship from Ric Flair at Mania 8, and I remember this really clearly, that Flair and Mr. Perfect were auctioning off their services to either Warrior or Savage, and they would be at the corner of one of the guys. And the match started, they weren't out there, but then they came out midway through and then started fucking with one of them, and then started fucking with the other one, and then I can remember Warrior was knocked out in the center of the ring, I believe, and Savage was going to do the big elbow, and then he realised what had happened, so he jumped out and Flair cracked him with the steel chair into his knee. And then they beat the shit out of beat the shit out of Savage. Warrior comes to, chases him away, but he's won by count out because Savage is fucked. So I can remember Warrior giving Savage the championship belt and helping him up. and then they formed the Ultimate Maniacs for a little while before the Warrior quit / got fired, whatever. It's not as good as match as their WrestleMania 7 retirement match, but it's still worth going back and looking at. It's quite fun. You know, it's also, again, very bittersweet to watch because both of them are gone now. So, and well, 3 of the 4 people involved, Warrior, Savage, Mr. Perfect, they're all gone. You know, it's quite shocking when you look back at something you've grown up watching. I mean, you know, everybody dies, but wow. And then comes to the British main event. What was billed as our main event was the British Bulldog and Bret Hart for the Intercontinental Championship. Now this match went on last, which was unknown for the IC belt, you know, and it's brilliant. It's heralded as the greatest SummerSlam match of all time, and quite rightly so. It's fantastic. It's got the right amount of highs, lows, the drama, the anticipation. It's a very well contested match, and sadly the British Bulldog is no longer here with us, but I can remember him being brought to the ring by Lennox Lewis. The crowd was amazing. It was the poor Bret. As a shadow of things to come, and 5 years later where he'd be booed out the building. It had already started in '92, but it was just a phenomenal match. It was a great end to the pay-per-view. Oh, so many happy memories about watching this pay-per-view. Funnily enough, this is actually the 3rd highest grossing pay-per-view as well. With the actual attendance, where was it? In SummerSlam 92, it was actually 80,355 people went to SummerSlam in 1992, which is the 3rd largest in the company's history, behind WrestleMania's 29 and 3. Now 3 is debated because of the possible inflammation or whatever it is, but it's also got one of the highest grossed on the actual revenue from merchandise as well. Now the buy rate was down because obviously our times are different to America, but that's a lot of money. So I don't know why they've never done a major pay-per-view here again, but you know, maybe they will one day. Moving swiftly on is, I think this was the last SummerSlam I watched for like 2 or 3 years, and with reason, because it's trash. I hated Lex Luger as a kid, I hated Yokozuna, and to see them as a tag team, in the main event for the title, I could think of much better people to be in the ring. I know they were pushing Lex down as the All-American hero, like Hulk Hogan Part 2. I think that was one reason why I didn't like him. And he had the Lex Express, he was going everywhere, and it was, you know, he didn't win the belt, whether he was going to, and they just changed it to a car, I don't know. Not the best match. Undertaker and Giant Gonzalez was a rest in peace match, wasn't it? And I don't even know what the hell happened in that match. Did he pin him, or what? He put a reef in? I don't know. It was at this time that Undertaker was just being saddled with stupid people to wrestle against. You know, Kamala wasn't too bad, but when Giant Gonzalez came out, I can remember seeing it at either Royal Rumble or I believe it was WrestleMania 9, and he just looked ridiculous. So I stopped paying attention to him, even though I knew him as El Gigante from WCW because of the book I mentioned earlier, but it wasn't enough to keep me interested. Razor Ramon beat Ted DiBiase in his very last wrestling appearance for WWE. I'm pretty sure that was the very last time we saw Ted wrestle. Pretty good, not too bad. You know, Ted DiBiase could still move, but then obviously an injury took him out, or he retired one of his own. The Heavenly Bodies didn't win the tag team belts yet again, but from the new champions, the Steiners, I can't remember when the Steiner brothers had it. I don't even remember they won it, to be honest. It was only because I was looking at my DVDs the other day that I remembered. And Jim Cornette turns up. You know, he's already messing around with Yokozuna and everything, but from what I remember, the match wasn't great. I think the great thing about the Steiner brothers in WWF was when we saw the Frankensteiner, I think it was. Other than that, yeah. Shawn Michaels beat Mr. Perfect by countout, if I remember right. That's because Diesel kept doing something. Should have been a great feud, should have been a great match, but unfortunately it wasn't. You know, the feud kind of fizzled. I don't know why. Maybe Shawn, maybe Perfect both had an ego. unfortunately, we'll never know. You know, it's one of those sadly missed ones. Then we come to Bret Hart. Bret Hart and Jerry Lawler. Now I remember this. Bret had got attacked by Jerry Lawler at the King of the Ring. Because Bret had won the King of the Ring, so he was called King of the Ring, and Jerry took exception to that. So at SummerSlam they were going to fight, and Jerry comes out on crutches saying, I can't wrestle, la la la, I'm going to bring out the court jester, and brings out Doink. Now, Bret versus Doink is supposed to be an impromptu match. It was really good. It was very entertaining, and I believe this was the original Doink, the other one, the one that got fired and then was replaced. A great little match, and I believe Jerry come out and come up from the apron and beat Bret up with one of the crutches, and showed that he could move. So was Jack Tunney still in charge at the time? Did he come out and tell him to restart, or did the Fink just do it? But whatever it was, the match had to restart with Jerry Lawler in the ring, and I can remember him and Bret having Bret beating him up, and then him pulling down the side of his tights like he was going to really mangle Bret, and then Bret did the same. It was, looking back at it, it's so corny. You're like, what? But Bret won, but lost the bout because he put him in the sharpshooter, but then wouldn't let go, if you all remember. So the feud ran far too long. It stopped in 1995, I believe it was, SummerSlam 95, when they just reheated it for some stupid things. But that was one of the only highlights of SummerSlam 93. So avoid it. Don't bother watching it. If you've got it on Tag Classics, you should only have it on Tag Classics because of 92. So you've got yourself a complimentary teacup holder there. Tea coaster, that's the word. Now, 94, that's another one that I didn't watch back then, but I did watch quite a couple of years after. I think it was about 97, 98, so some nostalgia there. This is where we still had the $1 Million Corporation, or it was just starting, or whatever it was. That was $1 Million Man's little stable. They toyed with the Women's Championship again, the Alundra Blaze. I think it was Bull Nakato, the Japanese wrestling lady. That wasn't too bad for then, but they never really took it seriously, so we'll never know. Diesel and Shawn Michaels had won the tag team belts on a house show or something a couple of days before, the night before, whatever it was. So Diesel was 2/3 of the way from becoming the first man to win every belt in 12 months. Diesel took on Razor Ramon for the IC belt, and it's a great little match. Diesel's not the best worker, as he's said, Kevin Nash, but him and Scott Hall had a highly entertaining match. Shawn jumping around, trying to take the padding off some of the corners. Razor Ramon had Walter Payton in his corner, who kept trying to do the right thing. Great fun, and Shawn come in. I think this was the very first time that Shawn had super kicked Diesel, and so Razor managed to win the belt that way. And I believe Shawn did it again at Survivor Series, and that was the last time that they'd done it, wasn't it? It was either 2 or 3 times that Shawn did it to Diesel to cause him to get all eggy. Tatanka and Lex Luger, why did they have a match? Was that one of them have been? Was Tatanka accusing Lex Luger of joining $1 Million Man, or was it the other way around? And Tatanka went bad then, didn't he? He was, yeah, I think so. Then we got another double main event. Bret Hart and Owen Hart, they'd had a classic match at WrestleMania 10, and this was a classic cage match for the belt. Now, everything's been said, greatly technical. Jim Neidhart had recently teamed up with Owen by helping him win the King of the Ring. The Bulldog had just come back, he was in the crowd, so he came back to WWF. The cage match was actually put up for the safety of the brothers, if you can remember. It was to keep the Hart family out and the Hart brothers in. So it did just that at the end. If you remember, Bret won the match, and then Jim Neidhart came out, kept Bret in, and locked the cage door with the chain, and they beat the piss out of him until Bulldog and was it Bruce and all that got over. So highly entertaining, that match. It was really, really good. Definitely worth watching. And then you got the other main event, Undertaker versus Undertaker. Now, who cares what happened here? It was terrible. I can see why they put it on last, just the gimmick sort of thing, but truly terrible. The only good things about it was to see Leslie Nielsen do all his Frank Drebin trying to find the Undertaker, which was a bit hokey, a bit stupid. Even as a kid, going back and looking at it, I'm thinking it was a bit stupid. I can remember seeing all the vignettes and the promos for Leslie Nielsen looking for him on Superstars whenever I'd flick through all the Sky channels, and just think, really, it just got to it was really stupid where I didn't want to watch it anymore. I'd watched the Royal Rumble, but that was it. I watched the Survivor Series, I think it was the day after, because my friend had told me Brett lost the belt to the old guy, so I wanted to see how that happened. But it's not a bad pay-per-view, 94. Some good, some bad. So yeah, it's worth a watch, but nothing too amazing. No fun facts about that one. 95, however, there's a few fun facts about it. You know, there's a lot of terrible stuff there as well. You know, fun fact: this is Hunter S. Helmsley's first pay-per-view, and look where he is today. You know, 19 years. 19 years, wow. You know, he took on Bob Holly. There was so much filler on this card, it just looks so terrible. You know, you've got Undertaker against Karma, who was, I believe he used to be Papa Shango and became the Godfather. Again, go in the quotes comment section, I can't remember. And this is a SummerSlam, I will be honest, I've never watched. I've seen the ladder match, I've seen the Bret Hart match, and I've seen the Diesel match, and I don't like any of them. So, I can't rate the whole pay-per-view, but the ladder match with Razor Ramon was originally supposed to be Sid Justice, or Psycho Sid, whatever he was called when he came back, and Shawn Michaels, but Gorilla Monsoon said he wanted to do what the fans wanted to do. So he gave us Shawn and Razor Ramon, but this was at the time when they were with Disney, or some other kid-friendly thing, so they couldn't use any weapons or anything, so it's a ladder match without the ladder. You know, they're not allowed to use the ladder, so they're doing like superplexes off the turnbuckle or whatever it was. It's okay, you know, it's a good follow-up to the 94 WrestleMania 10 ladder match, but, you know, if that's the only thing of the pay-per-view, then you've saved yourself some money. Bret Hart took on Isaac Yankem DDS. If the more astute fans will know that this is Kane. Was it Glenn Jacobs is his name? His very first pay-per-view for WWE. And look at him now. I bet he's loving it. I bet he's glad he got off of that gimmick. And Diesel beat King Mabel. The good thing about this is Kevin Nash has said that he suffered a back injury when Mabel sat on him. Apparently this isn't the only guy that Mabel injured. So apparently didn't he injure Undertaker as well? So I'm surprised he stayed as long as he did. But moving on, 96, SummerSlam 1996. This is one that I did watch. I think it was a couple of days after my brother-in-law taped it for me. Owen Hart and Savio Vega. I remember this one because Owen Hart had a cast on his hand, if I remember rightly. And the finish of the match was Savio did a back suplex off of the turnbuckle, didn't he? And Owen put the cast behind his head, so when he hit the ground, the cast caught his head and knocked him out. So I can remember watching that and thinking, yeah, that's a pretty interesting finish. So it wasn't too bad. You know, 96 isn't the best pay-per-view, but it's not too bad. Psycho Sid apparently took on the British Bulldog. I can't even remember seeing that one, so yeah. Goldust and Mark Merrow had a brawl, and I believe that was to do with the women, wasn't it? You know, Goldust was harassing Sable or something like that. We had was it a fatal four-way for the tag team championship match? I want to say the Hillbilly people. Was it the Godwins? Is that what they were called? Marty Jannetty and his partner. Weren't they Rockers 2 or other Rockers, something, whatever they were called. The Body Donners had come into it, if I remember that, and the smoke, was it still Smoking Guns, or did they change their name to just Guns or something? I don't know. Billy and Bart. you know, and didn't Sonny leave the body donors for the guns earlier? I can't remember. Yeah, again, I was still not really interested. I was only tuning into the occasional thing at this point. I can remember Mankind and Undertaker's Boiler Room Brawl. Now that was fantastic. Looking at it and seeing how hardcore it was going, I got into that match because it was different from everything else. And then, as everyone knows, we have the pallbearer turn at the end. You know, not a bad match, good little fun. It did have a bit of distaste in this pay-per-view with the Jerry the King Lawler and Jake the Snake Roberts segment. Now, Jake was apparently clean and had found God at the time. Again, I can't quote, I wasn't there, but this was very uncomfortable to watch. You know, so you wouldn't do that. And I get it in wrestling, you've got to do everything to try and get heat or whatever, but there are some things you don't do, and it's that sort of thing that I don't agree with. So I can remember Mark Henry, funnily enough, this was his first appearance, and then he would wrestle at the next pay-per-view against Jerry Lawler because of this, because he came out to help Jake the Snake, didn't he? So think about that, people. Mark Henry has been there for 18 years. 18 years, that's a hell of a long time that guy has been there. He must be doing something right for Vince. And then we come to the main event. Shawn Michaels with the championship against Big Van Vader, or Vader, or whatever his name is. Whatever his name was, I should say then. Hampered by Shawn's hissy fit in the middle, where Vader didn't move in time, so Shawn got all pissy, and then it was supposed to be the start of the trilogy of matches between Vader and Shawn, if everyone knows it. You know, they were supposed to have the rematch at Survivor Series, where Vader would beat the shit out of Jose and cause Shawn to lose the belt, and then Shawn would regain the belt at Royal Rumble. They got into an argument or whatever it was backstage, and Shawn was like, well, fuck you, and that was it. Vader was at the main event and never recovered from that. Which was a shame, because again, that book I got was amazing. I learned all about Vader. I'd seen him in WCW when I caught it on terrestrial TV over here in England. I loved Vader. I always had time for watching Vader, and watching him in this match, it was like watching, watching the worst stuff you could think of. It was just like watching paint dry. It was completely tedious, as Shawn Michaels would probably put it now, but he had his problems then, so, one thing I can remember is the match kept getting restarted, wasn't it? Like, Shawn was counted out, Shawn was disqualified because he slapped him with the tennis racket, and then didn't he win by jumping off the top ropes or doing something? Whatever, Shawn won that match, but, he would eventually lose the war at Royal Rumble at 98. Now we come to SummerSlam 97. Now I'd just kind of gotten back into the wrestling at the time, and Hart had turned heel, so I was quite interested in that, and I've gone back and I still love this pay-per-view. Mankind kicks it all off with the steel cage match with Triple H. A pretty good cage match, Old Mick has to do his stupid things of jumping off of everything again just to get over. It's quite entertaining, and fans remember him jumping off because he turns into Doolove at the end and whatever. But yeah, not too bad. Then we had there was a lot of stipulations on this pay-per-view, if I remember rightly. I mean, Goldust was with, Brian Pillman, and their stipulation was if Pillman lost, he had to wear a dress, wasn't it? Or he had to wear one until he won a match, wasn't it? Or something like that. But Brian Pillman lost, and Goldust, for what everyone says, he's not going to be a Stone Cold or a Rock or anything, but he's a pretty solid wrestler, and I don't know why everyone gives him shit. But moving on, the Legion of Doom and the Godwins. I can remember seeing like a segment where apparently the Legion of Doom broke one of the Godwins' neck with the Doomsday device. He'd fell and landed on his head. So that was the thing going into this match, and I think the Godwins were the heels at this point, so I think Legion of Doom won that one. It's your average Legion of Doom stuff, Fair play to them that they carried on as they were. Then we had the dog food match with Bulldog and Ken Shamrock, where if Bulldog lost, he would eat a can of dog food, and they'd had loads of stuff going into this, hadn't they? Like an arm wrestling match, or was it a push-up match or something like that? You know, see who could do the most push-ups. And then Bulldog goes apeshit in the middle of it and chucks dog food at Ken Shamrock, and then Shamrock just goes snaps and is disqualified because he won't let Bulldog go, and he's choking him out. And then he starts slamming all the referees. I can remember watching that thinking, this guy is pathetic, this guy's crap. I hated Ken Shamrock then. And he was one of the guys from UFC, wasn't he? So, yeah, whatever. Los Boricuas and Disciples of Apocalypse. I don't even remember that match, so moving on. Then we'll come to Owen Hart and Steve Austin. Now, I can't say anything that hasn't been said before. We all know the match. It's the one where Steve broke his neck, or seriously injured his neck. What do I think about it? The match should have been stopped then and there. Should have been straight to the hospital. Shouldn't have fucked about. You know, it was a dangerous move. It was the wrong thing to do. And well, as we all know, it severely shortened Steve Austin's career. But yeah, I don't know what else to say. You know, everyone else has said everything they can about it. So moving on with that one. Bret Hart and The Undertaker now. Oh, sorry, I'll go back. The stipulation for Owen and Austin was if Austin lost, he'd kiss Owen's ass. And the quote was, if I can't kick it, I'll kiss it. Good old Steve. He's good on the mic. And finally, we got Bret Hart and The Undertaker. Now, the stipulation here was if Bret lost, he'd never wrestle in the US again. It's times when you get a stupid gimmick or stip like that, you just know who's going to win. Now, this is when Bret and Shawn were really not getting along for whatever reasons. The Monday Night Wars were really kicking off. So this is almost like the start of the tide turning, where we're getting some different stuff. And Shawn came in as the guest referee for this one, and Bret was pissed off about it. I can remember watching Wrestling with Shadows and seeing everything. Yeah, it's a really good Bret and Taker match, to be honest. I mean, I think I've watched every Bret and Taker match they've had, and you know, they were good fun to watch. You know, Shawn being there added it the whole wild card factor, and he had a stipulation that if he was biased towards Bret Hart in any way, shape or form, then he wouldn't wrestle in the US again either. And they played the ending fantastic, where Bret used the chair and then Shawn confronts him with it, and Bret mouths off, wasn't it, fuck you, and spat on him, and then Shawn fucking smash Taker with that chair. And then you see him go shit as he wipes the spit off his face, because he has to counter, otherwise he's gone too. And I love Jerry the King Lawler's commentary during that, where he's saying Shawn Michaels' ego is so big it needs its own zip code and whatnot. Fucking brilliant. Great commentary, great little match, and definitely one of my favourite SummerSlams. Definitely worth picking up, guys. I would seriously recommend it, and sadly it would be the last one to feature Bret Hart for 13 years. He wouldn't be back until 2010. More on that later. Then we come to SummerSlam 98. Now, I did watch this, I think it was about 2 weeks afterwards, and I can remember thinking at this time, now WWF's undergone a serious change, because then it was kicking ass. But I didn't like all of it. I know I didn't like the oddities. Were they up against Kaientai or something? That was just stupid. D'Lo Brown and Val Venus. I remember this one because Val was the porn character, wasn't he? And that was pretty good. I remember this match because D'Lo was wearing the chest protector, wasn't he, at this point, because he'd injured his ribs. So they were doing that. That was a pretty entertaining match as well. You know. And was this was before D'Lo had caused Droz to be paralysed, wasn't it? So poor guy. X-Pac and Jeff Jarrett, that was the hair versus hair match, wasn't it? And that was to freshen up Jeff Jarrett's character. Oh god. I don't know what else I can put about that. X-Pac, before everybody hated him, won that one, I think. Fun fact, this is Edge's first pay-per-view with Sable in a mixed tag match with Mark Mero and Jacqueline. Wasn't this the pay-per-view match where Sable powerbombed Mark Mero and it effectively ruined his career? I mean, I've watched a lot of wrestlers make a lot of mistakes in my life, but I've never watched one do that and think, do you know what, that was fucking stupid, because you're never going to wrestle again. No one's going to take, no one, no man, woman or child, even Gilbert or fucking Barry Horowitz isn't going to beat you. If you can get powerbombed by your wife, who weighs 1/5 of your weight, you ain't going to beat the fucking ring boy. Moving on, we had Owen Hart and Ken Shamrock, and this was the first Lions Den match, wasn't it? Now, this was their series of matches where Ken Shamrock took on Owen Hart in various places, wasn't it? The first one was at the Hart family home in the dungeon, and this was the second one where they were in the Lions Den, which was a rip-off of the Octagon. Not too bad, you know. I've seen Owen wrestling better, and I've seen Shamrock do better. It's not too bad. Want to quickly talk about, because I found it funny. New Age Outlaws won the belts back, the tag team belts back, from Mankind. Not Mankind and Kane, just Mankind, because Kane wasn't there, apparently. And this was after Mankind had done his retarded thing, yes Mick Foley, the retarded thing of jumping off the Hell in the Cell and jumping through the fucking cell. Well done. No one can take a fucking bump anymore. Sorry, I digressed. Mick took a beating in the match, which I did find funny, because yes, I did watch The King of the Ring, and I read about it as well, so immediately I did a facepalm. But this was a dumpster match, wasn't it? It was the rematch from WrestleMania 14, and Mick was tossed into the dumpster and they won the belts back, but then Kane stood up in the dumpster and smashed him with the sledgehammer, didn't he? Smashed his hand or something, and I remember everyone going, "Oh, fuck, it's Kane," and I was like, good, you know. I was never a Mankind fan once he turned face. He was always a better heel. Moving swiftly on, probably my favourite ladder match of all time has to go to The Rock and Triple H. Now, as most people will get to know me over these videos and the weird rebooking, I'm not the biggest Triple H fan. But this match is fantastic. It is a great ladder match, it's a great match, and has some great little spots on it. The Rock, well, everyone said that this was the time he proved himself to be WWF champion material, and then he did it even more so in a couple of months afterwards. I think it was Breakdown, he had the triple threat steel cage match, Mankind, Shamrock and The Rock, to go for the championship match, wasn't it? But this was great, you know, and Triple H went in with an injury to his knee and he won it, and then had to fucking vacate it. What? Looking back at it is a bit stupid, but this was like the blow off to the DX feud, because loads of DX members have been around with were they still called the Nation of Domination at this time? Because The Rock had ousted Farouk, I believe it was. But it's a load of fun. It's really good, and fair play to him. You know, The Rock and Triple H had some good chemistry. They had some good matches. This, along with I think it was Backlash 2000, is definitely two of my favourite Rock and Triple H matches. So fair play, guys. And then fun, it was Steve Austin and Undertaker. Now Undertaker had been teased in return to join Kane, I believe it was, at the time, and Steve was the champion. Now if you go back and look at the match, Austin takes a smash to the face and is knocked a bit doolally for it. I think it's where Taker goes to do a backdrop and stands up or something like that. I only can remember that because my friend and I were talking about it the other day. Dickie Cats, you know it. Steve retained the championship in a pretty good match for him and Taker. You know, it was a good load of fun. Coming off the bat with Austin's first blood match with Kane at King of the Ring. Austin was on fire, and that Smoking Skull belt, that was really good. Loved the touch of respect from Taker to Austin at the end, where he handed him the belt back and said, you know, did he shake his hand or give him a fist bump or anything? But yeah, it wasn't a bad pay-per-view, but that match was really, really fun. And again, with the ladder match before, it's definitely worth checking out, if only for those 2 matches. 1999. Firstly, Jesse the Body Ventura's back, or Jesse the Governor Ventura. I remember seeing a lot of this, and he got a lot of shit because he'd just been announced as the governor of Minnesota a while back, and then he was going back into wrestling. I know they weren't happy because he was a wrestler who won being a governor and everything. It was just, politics, man. But him and Vince had, you know, kissed and made up over, I believe it was TV royalties, wasn't it? And so they got into business, and I watched this the next day. I got it taped off of my brother-in-law because he used to tape it all the time for me at this point, and I couldn't believe it. Jeff Jarrett was in a great match, him and D'Lo, for the Euro-Continental, as they called it at the time, the European and the Intercontinental Champions on one person. Sorry, the European and Intercontinental Championships on one person. Really, really good. And then Mark Henry had been away for a while, I believe, and didn't he turn on D'Lo and smashed him with the guitar, and then sided with Jeff Jarrett. So I think I can remember this is one of the matches where Jeff came out wearing the "Don't Piss Me Off" t-shirt, and I was thinking, okay, that's one way to try and get yourself over, I suppose. There was a tag team, was it tag team turmoil or whatever it is, or gauntlet match where the Acolytes beat everybody else. Was it the Hollies? I can't remember. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. Was it Matt and Jeff Hardy, the Draws, and was he with Prince Albert at the time? Yeah, I think he was. Mideon and Viscera. Yeah, Mideon and Viscera were still there, weren't they? The from the Undertaker's Brood, and was it Edge of Christian? So we still had those. Al Snow beat the Big Boss Man for the hardcore belt. Is this the one where they went through the bar as well? It wasn't the Kennel from Hell match, that was Unforgiven. But I'm pretty sure this is the one where they went through the bar and Road Dogg was chatting away and doing commentary on it. That was pretty funny. I can't remember the women's match. Was it Tori and Ivory? And was this the one where a woman stood up or tried to grab Ivory or something at the end? I can't remember. They all, you can see this is moulding together. Ken Shamrock and Steve Blackman in another Lions Den match. I believe this is the very last Lions Den match. Don't quote me on that. Again, put it in the comment section if there was another. I'm here to learn, same as everyone else. But I think there was weapons on this one as well. Wasn't Steve Blackman always using nunchucks or the kendo stick? Again, not bad, you know. So what else can you do, really? You know, it's a rip-off Octagon, and what do we know? One match that stood out because it was fantastic is Test and Shane McMahon. Was it the Lover or Lever they called it? Was it a street fight? The Greenwich Street Fight, that's it. For Stephanie McMahon, wasn't it? Because Test had been dating her for a while. Who knew Shane could do well in the ring? And then he had to fuck it up by ruining it in Randy Orton's Heat in 2009. But never mind. Yeah, this guy, he was pretty good back then. I remember being really interested. Was this a cage match as well, or was there another one? I vaguely remember there being a cage match as well. Again, put it in the comment section. So yeah, Test won that one. Then we got the Unholy Alliance, I think they were called, or part of Taker's Brood or whatever. Undertaker and the Big Show beat X-Pac and Kane. Wasn't the story of this, X-Pac's got a bad neck, and Kane can talk with the robotic thing saying, "You hurt Sean." Yeah, again, it was a bit of a whatever match. The Rock and Billy Gunn, the Kiss My Ass match, which The Rock won. You know, what was The Rock doing? He was the champion, now he's nothing. Luckily, he bounced back when Austin was injured, because I don't want to think that Rock couldn't have held, you know, a prominent position. Then we get to the main event. It's the first of 2 SummerSlams back-to-back where the match, the end match, the main event, is a triple threat. And this is some great views on politics here. Originally it was supposed to be Steve Austin against Triple H for the championship belt, but then Mankind was thrown into it. after coming back from having knee surgery because of all the accidents that he'd done to himself. Jesse the Body Ventura was the referee for this match, and fun fact, it's 11 years after this first one. But yeah, Mankind was given the belt because Steve Austin refused to put Triple H over. How's that? Now everyone gives Triple H shit for putting people down. I don't blame him. I don't like the fact that he was on top for so long. He's okay, but there are people there that, you know, missed their chance, but whatever, you know, Stone Cold didn't believe Triple H was ready, and to be fair, I don't think he was at that time. In January, when he had his feud with Mick, Mick did very well with him there, and elevated Triple H to a main event, but I don't think he was just quite ready at SummerSlam 99, but Triple H lost, I believe, sorry, Austin lost, because wasn't he hit with a chair or a pedigree or something, and Mick came in and stole the win, something like that. But we'll be moving on to 2000 very soon.